Hi, everybody. If you had to watch me crash and burn a little bit in second period, I apologize about that. I actually had my chemical formula incorrect, which made lots of problems. But here is a video explaining how to balance any chemical equation using an example of CH4 plus O2 yields CO2 plus H2O. So like I said in the video, or like I said in the lecture initially, the first thing you always want to do is make sure that you can balance the chemical equation. So let's check to make sure we've got the same atoms on both sides of our arrow. Carbon, carbon, check. Hydrogen, hydrogen, check. And oxygen, oxygen, check. So we can definitely balance this equation. Our first step in balancing the equation is going to be to write the type of atom and then the number of those atoms found in the reactants and in the products. Because if we fill in this chart first, we'll be able to clearly see how and where we can add coefficients to manipulate and balance the equation. Let's start with carbon. In the reactants, I have one carbon. And in the products, I also have just one carbon. Hydrogen, I have 4 hydrogen in my reactants. Remember, whenever we see the superscript, or pardon me, the subscript, sub below the subscript, we know that that means that there are that number of that atom. It doesn't mean that there's 4 carbons. It means that there's 4 hydrogen in one molecule of CH4. And that molecule will actually look like this. So that carbon is bonded to each of those hydrogens. And 1, 2, 3, 4 hydrogen in our reactants. Then over here in our products, we've got H2O. So that means that there's going to be 2 hydrogens there, because remember, H2O looks something like this. There's 2 hydrogens bonded to 1 oxygen. And finally, we've got our oxygen. So here we've got O2. So there's 2 in our reactants, and O2 is, remember, it's a diatomic, bonded to another of itself. And then if we look over here in our product side, we've got CO2, which is oxygen bonded to a carbon, bonded to another oxygen. So there's 2. And then we've got 1 in our H2O. So we've got 3 in total in our products. So now we can start figuring out where to add coefficients to balance the equation. I'm going to look at my carbons, and I've got the same number of carbons on both sides of the equation, so I don't need to worry about that. Take a look at hydrogens. I've got 4 hydrogens in my reactants, but I only have 2 in my products. So this is a great place to start manipulating and adding a coefficient. What mathematically can I do to 2 to get it to 4? Well, hopefully you're saying, obviously, Ms. Milberg, you just multiply that by 2. So that means when I multiply that by 2, in order to do that, what I have to do is add a coefficient of 2. When I add a coefficient, it means I'm making more of that molecule. I'm producing more of that molecule, I should say. So now, when I say 2H2O, this is what I mean. I've got 2 molecules of water. And that means that I actually have 4 hydrogen. But you're probably saying, Ms. Milberg, you just added a 2 in front of H2O. You are correct. We now have changed how many oxygen we have. We've got 2 oxygen there instead of just the 1. So what we need to do is adjust this. That means we now have 2 oxygen right here. Oops, I'm going to erase all of that because we're going to change a bunch of stuff. We've got 2 oxygen in our H2O. We have a total of 4 oxygen now in our products. And we fixed our hydrogen. Our hydrogen are balanced. But we now have the issue of having 4 oxygen in our reactants. CO2, 1, 2, 3, 4, pardon me, in our products. 1, 2, 3, 4 in our products, and only 2 in our reactants. Again, you're probably saying, well, we need to just change that 2 into a 4 by multiplying it by 2, which means we add a coefficient of 2 in front of this particular molecule. So when we add the coefficient to O2, we're adding a second molecule of O2 to our reaction. When we do that, we end up with 4 oxygen. And then 4, 4, we are completely balanced. So if I were to write it out nice and neat, our balanced reaction would be CH4 plus 2O2 yields CO2 plus 2H2O. And there you have it. That's how you balance a chemical equation.